This episode of the Closeout Bodyboarding podcast is brought to you by Bodyboarding Victoria and Attica Wetsuits. The new Attica Winter range is now available in your favourite bodyboard and surf hardware stores. To stay warm this winter, check out the new Alpha series featuring liquid seams, gridlock firewall lining and 100% Neospan Super Stretch for ultimate flex. Or if you're lucky enough to be in a warmer climate, the Omega series has you covered with GBS construction, seamless stomach design and taped criticals. Check out the entire range at atticawetsuits.com. Welcome back to the podcast, Lukey O'Connor. Mate, how you doing? It's been a pretty whirlwind few weeks for you, mate, not just on a bodyboarding front, but also on a personal front. Like, mate, how are you still up and about? I'm shocked you're not in a self-induced coma for the next month.
Oh, mate, the adrenaline's definitely settling now, and I'm starting to come to terms with what we've just achieved. So proud of the Sam and myself. Had a couple of good moments around the comp. But as it had finished, and we were really stoked on and what had gone down. But obviously, not even to mention the personal things with my wife bringing our second boy into the world on Thursday. So kind of 3 days before the comp, it was all go, go, go. But yeah, I'm in a little baby bubble now. I've kind of put the feet up, so to speak. Did a couple of things with the comp, like later or early on in this week, just packing it down and doing errands and running around for a couple of loose ends. But yeah, in the baby bubble now, Benny, and just lapping it up and smiling and chuckling back to myself at the last 365 days last year and where it all came to and where it's going to hopefully go into the future.
I'll tell you what, mate, this is basically a script to a Hollywood movie. It's a top seller. I'm just trying to figure out now who's going to play you. I'm not... I mean, there were rumours circulating that one of the Hemsworths might have been floating around the comp area, so maybe he was just doing a little bit of, recon for the role.
Oh, fuck, you're pumping my tyres up too well, Benny. I love it. But yeah, it is a bit bizarre, really, because I thought at some stage maybe the baby will come, because baby chooses when baby wants to come. Possibly on the day after, I was selfishly thinking to myself, I won't be able to sink as many schoolies as I would like at the after party. That was, selfishly coming into my mind, and, baby just knew on Thursday morning that the swells were arriving, and young Huey O'Connor came into the world, and I guess well named too. So yeah, it's been been full roller coaster, man. But at the same time, I wouldn't have it any other way. And I guess sometimes life can just get pretty mundane and repetitive, and we all know we get into work and we get in those cycles. You've got to kind of grind through them, so you've got to appreciate those kind of hectic, exciting, lively moments. And I'm pretty grateful to be just on the other side of one now,
mate. And again, what a moment that was. So first and foremost, mate, massive congratulations to you and the team on such a successful event. Obviously, the comeback tour of the Shark Island Challenge for 2024. Before we get into that, mate, though, I'd actually like to kind of peel the layers back a little and kind of go back to the start of the week. Obviously, we had you on the podcast not that long ago. We talked about a lot of the kind of planning and operational input that went into making this event happen. But essentially, you almost had this window of opportunity. You guys made the call. You kind of went to that amber alert and then, put the green light in action. So then you had a lot of kind of wheels in motion when those colours changed. Obviously, planes started landing. You had some big name guys setting foot into Oz, some for the first time as well. But you kicked things off with a pretty incredible promotional event out at the new Urban Surf at Olympic Park.
Yeah, that was quite the Friday night. I know you surfed the pool down in Melbourne heaps of times on the lights, and it never really gets old. So I know a lot of the athletes got a real kick out of that, just being able to surf an hour session by themselves with no more than kind of 10 people, maybe 11 at most on each side, like the left and the right. So heaps of waves were had. The level of riding was amazing, and Sean Cooper and myself got to sling a couple of yarns up on the mic there with Adrian Emerson and his Common Thread film team, just laying out some amazing production. We had a bit of a hiccup, unfortunately, going live on Instagram at the start through Riptide with our audio, but we got that fixed by Sammy Strachan, who also provided the sound. We actually had to pull him out of the icy cold water at around like 9:15 at night and he was very reluctant to exit the water. But when he came in, he sorted the issue out, and then the feed went on from there. And yeah, man, it was so cool to see, interviewing a lot of different people. It was great to have Jared on there, Jared Houston and Terence Avaya. We had Lily Pollard on for a bit. Josh Kirkman came up and gave us a pretty good political spiel on surface of climate. So yeah, it was really fun and just nice to add in an element to, I guess you could almost call it the Shark Island Festival, the lead up to that week, making sure that it's not just one event, and we're trying to do activations to, increase sponsorship, obviously keep the sponsors who are on board engaged and happy with the outreach for the comp. And yeah, I just felt like it was a nice kickback for a lot of the riders too, like turn up, free sessions, beers there on hand, from all the urban surf team and the operations team there. Carlos and the crew, they did a huge job and staying back another, I think it was 45 minutes. We didn't get out of there till like 11 or 11:10 at night. So it was really sick, and something we'd hope to do every year in the lead up, really.
Mate, one question I want to ask you, and this is backtracking to essentially what you said about Sammy Strachan. Icy cold water. Is it really that cold, mate? You're so much further up on the Australian coastline than what we are here in Victoria. Can't be that cold, mate. I figured you guys would still be in board shorts at this time of year.
Oh, mate, look, I think I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We don't have the same amount of hairs on our chest as you Victorians, Benny O'Born. We just don't have it. And yeah, like I think the fellas were a little bit surprised because the ocean's still down here in winter, man. It doesn't get below. Like right now, I think because of the Ranina pattern, we've got 18-degree water.
That's ridiculous.
I know the west coast of Oz is still the same. And yeah, it is ridiculous. So, we're in 3.2s, 4.3s up here when it's a bit of wind chill and there's snow in the mountains, and it's kind of a piss take. So yeah, when they hopped in the water and the ocean was still 18, 19 in the water, I think it was 13.9 or 14, they all got a rude shock, and Cam doesn't have much meat on the bone anyway. The bloke can go, 10, 15 foot in the air off an air bowl and tech as hell, but he needs a bit more meat on the bone. So that's why he was shivering.
Hey, obviously, you basically had one of the greatest collectives of bodyboarders in a wave pool at once. I can't recall when there's been a single moment, maybe with the exception of some of those board demo tests down at Urban Surf in Melbourne. But I mean, even then, I don't think they had so much star power. I mean, do you think there is a future potential to have something special from a competitive point of view in a wave pool? I mean, wave pools are, to a degree, they're limited. I mean, it's a 3 to 3.5 foot little wave. So, you can't go, 10 foot above the lip as you would at some of the great reef break waves across the world. But do you think there's a chance to pull off something spectacular there?
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. I know Kelly Slater's wave pool in the WSL series, if it's still in there this year. I don't know if it is.
I don't think it is, yeah.
Yeah, and that probably is because of the feedback, and I totally get it. But I do think there is a place for it because it's just such a way to refine and hone the skills where then the judging criteria can be focused in on the very minute things that like a bodyboarder will have to possess to win some of those comps. And I think it'll produce a different type of surfer, like a different bodyboarder, so to speak, that won't, if they just focus so much on that, they won't have as much experience or understanding of the ocean and how those walls of energy move. But I think with a wave pool, you could definitely get it done, just because you can just get the same conditions time and time again, relatively speaking, with like light winds. And it's such a scene to watch a bodyboarder after a couple of waves, especially like I'm watching Marley Dunn or Liam Lucas or even Anthony Miller or Jared Houston, even Josh Cleave out there. Absolutely, he came in for a couple of waves because he was staying with Jared, and like watching those guys go wave to wave and them improving every wave as they're getting towards that lip line and adjusting small things with their leading elbow or how they, are flicking their body over in regards to a backward or ARS or whatever it is. There's so much room for progression. So I really feel like there is a future. Do you guys see it down there in Bodyboarding Victoria? Like, have you guys discussed it at Urban Surf there?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, yeah, we're Bodyboarding Vic, collaborating with Drop Knee Sessions for a pretty unique kind of format event in August this year, which is pretty cool. Essentially, we're going to have a DK Sessions event on one side of the pool, and on the other side, we're actually having a State of Origin event, Bodyboarding Vic versus South Oz Bodyboard Association.
That's a really cool idea.
So, there's going to be some playful banter leading up to that one for sure.
Look, without a doubt.
And look, yeah, I mean, look, you know, we're not the best in the world by any means. Obviously, we're just really lucky to have the wave pool in our backyard. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some good takeaways and put that towards something bigger in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a huge future there. Technology's only going to get better. You know, you look at what they've done in Sydney, and there's good improvements in regards to Melbourne pool. And there's probably a couple of things that I wouldn't have been changing. Like, you know, up in Sydney at the moment, I believe on the expert section, you only get you only get 6 waves.
Right.
So down in Vico, isn't it like...
We get 12 a set.
12, exactly. I thought it was double. So when you look at that, I don't know why that is. I know the pool's slightly shorter and the way the channel rushes off on the side of it is deeper or whatever it is. So I don't know if it's anything to do with that. But yeah, like there's things that still need to be improved on. And man, as that wave technology gets more powerful and more refined, like can you imagine, I know everyone talks about it, but like a proper 4 to 6 foot air bowl? Like,
mate, Cloud 9-esque.
Yeah,
imagine that. Phenomenal.
And who's to say someone doesn't go and map that reef through, you know, some sort of scanning technique or technology? You know, I don't know anything about that, but, you know, imagine you could get the topography of the ocean floor quite easily these days and then just place that into a cement structure that could generate, a similar wave. Like,
my biggest question, why does it have to be concrete? Why? I mean, we have access to so many different elements and bioproducts these days. Like, there'd be something amazing to create out of like recycled plastics, right? Like, it's still the good thing about recycled plastics. It moves. You could have the ability to constantly change the shape of the bottom of the pool, almost like building blocks.
Yeah, that's a really valid point. And I guess also too, like rock is very static, obviously, but over periods of time with the reef, like in certain ways, bits of kanji and all that sort of stuff get displaced and moved, and you know, it is a slightly constantly changing, aspect, I guess, of the ocean and life. So why not put it in the pool and then be able to mix it up? Yeah. Totally right. I guess the one thing we'd be thinking about the filtration system and how it would react with the materials that you've got on the bottom and making sure it's all
true.
All above board. But yeah, still, man, I think that's a great idea. And we've got enough fucking garbage, so throw it in the pool and get some waves going.
That's your professional pool background coming into thought there, isn't it?
Yeah, I always think about how the water's going to be filtered. I'm a bit of a nerd like that. And Sean always go on and on about that. But it's, I don't know, mate, you're 60 or 65% water bending. So, you know, it reacts the same way that we do, essentially.
Yeah, true. All right, mate. Well, let's get into the big one, the Shark Island Challenge. Obviously, one of the most notorious bodyboarding events on the calendar, and not just as a standalone event. I mean, the history of this showdown has crowned some of the best champions in the world, and it's produced some of the most mind-boggling, scariest, and I guess terrifying waves that we've ever seen. And I mean, the conditions that you guys had on the weekend weren't that far off the mark, mate. Give me a little bit of an insight into the forecast leading up to your green light. I'd love to kind of get you to run me through why you picked that Sunday. Obviously, you know, there's a fair bit of feedback floating around from the keyboard warriors. I obviously think that's quite irrelevant. I mean, overall, I think it was a pretty sensational setup. But, mate, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Benny. Look, first and foremost, everyone's entitled to their opinion. So stoked to hear chatter online, negative or positive, whatever it is, at least they're talking about the comp. And obviously there's things that can be improved. So any sort of feedback, as long as it's constructive, you know, nicely well put feedback, then happy to consider and talk about it. And you know, there's always people out there that aren't going to fully agree with what you did. So, and that's just life. We're all humans and we're different people. But leading up to the event, like we orange lighted it after speaking with Craig Brockage of the Swellnet, and there were 3 systems over a 10-day period that was very promising. We just needed one of them. With a lot of moisture infeed from the tropics at that time and a high pushing off the coast of the inland of Australia to allow lows to slip up. And one of them was going to land in the Tasman and essentially provide like a southeast swell that we, and hopefully an east southeast swell that we're about to run on. Because like ideally, if you talk to most people at the island, you wouldn't want anything less than 130 to 140, and you wouldn't want anything more than say 100. Because when you start going past 100, it starts to go towards that eastern east shape, and it just becomes too much of just a surge game and doesn't bring the peak into it. And like the length of the wave with the 3 sections being the peak, White Rock and surge is what people really admire about the island. Because there's 3 battles. I guess you have to win to make the wave. So yeah, we orange lighted it. We kind of got on the blowers to the internationals. They started making plans, and as the forecast kept evolving, we saw the first swell slip away. The second swell was there for a long time, and unfortunately on that public holiday Monday, it slipped away also and just turned into a really mediocre wind swell. And so we were getting a little bit nervous and going, come on, Huey, you got to throw something up the coast here. Give a dog a bone. And we finally got one. And obviously, we knew, speaking to Craig from SwellNet, and we always conferred with him because obviously you want to train meteorologists to be behind you on these decisions and make sure that you're getting the right info. Because a lot of people can look at graphs and look at computer models that just spit out numbers and don't actually take into consideration what is happening with the weather. There's a lot of times models will spit out swells that will unfortunately be mixed together, and it'll show you 140 degrees. It really you've got 10 foot of 170 degree south swell, but you've got an overlay of like 4 foot 150 degree or 130 degree east swell. So then they combine them together. The feet go on top of each other. It looks like a 4 meter or like a 12, 13 foot southeast swell, and you're like, oh, we're on here. But so back to the point, we were always talking to Craig, and he didn't really like the look of Sunday. He said, yeah, you're going to get swell, but it's one of the leading fronts of that newly formed low. The first bit of the pulse came in on Thursday into Friday, and then the next one was coming in on Sunday. And we originally thought, okay, cool. It's going to be south, but we know on the lower tide, starting from the 0.8 meter tide at around 11:30, that will allow the swell to build as the tide filled in, but also when that's lower like that in the south swell, you still allow those runners on the inside that really hug the rock ledge. And that's one of the ones that busted up Lester actually and fractured his scapula in the final. So he was, as a local, he was looking for those ones, and that's what we were forecasting that was going to be like that for most of the afternoon and getting quite big into the final where what waves were looking to pulse. We went ahead without Craig's blessing, so to speak. He definitely said you'll get waves, but it's not ideal island. We said, okay, well, let's put it this way. From the Monday after, from the 17th of June, going all the way to the 24th, tides are terrible. Like this morning, for example, on Wednesday, we had really fun waves at the island. Everyone surfed from like 6:30 to 7:30, and by then a lot of the comments were already got too low too quick, and it started to become kind of just washing through and a little bit dangerous. So they would have got to 8 o'clock, 8:30. Everyone was kind of out of there. An hour and a half essentially about a run on that morning. And then when we got into the afternoon, the Savos, the swell had faded out a bit. It looked really fun, like 3 to 4 foot. Tide was coming, looked really fun. There was 40 people on it, but is that what you really want for the Shark Island Challenge? And that's what we had to keep playing in our head. We don't have the tides next week. We don't have the guarantee that the swell is going to continue to stick around. It's already been here since Thursday. How can you say we're going to go Wednesday, Thursday after a week of waves essentially and still get that low throwing, serious pulses up the coast? So Sunday was decided on the Wednesday night into Thursday morning after we had our last SIC committee meeting. And that's a long way to call out a swell. Usually we only want to give 72
Well, again,
hours.
Particularly at a location like Shark Island. So
for sure. And you need usually 3-day rule. 3 days usually solidify those charts, and then you can kind of play with that. But because we had a production team that we needed badly to lock in on that day, international riders were going home on the following Monday. There was a lot of things going on that kind of led to that Sunday being the green light. And it also came into play. What I've noticed, and I know you've noticed it, and a lot of people that study bodyboarding and are putting effort in to make sure that it goes further into the modern day of international sport, is that we're not seen as very professional. when we're seen as like a pastime, a leisure sport, and whatever. We all know internally inside the sport that's not the case, and there's really high level athletes that are putting it all on the line in hectic situations to kind of further the sport. But when it comes to an organisational standpoint, we just lack the infrastructure, unfortunately, internally to continually make those corporate-based decisions, so to speak. And one of the corporate-based decisions that we saw from our sponsor's point of view and making sure the community was involved and the community stakeholders that came on board for this comp was to run on a sunny weekend day. We had fine weather, all the activations through, we had ice.
Mate, it's about getting bums on seats.
It is, yeah. So we had the wealthy club there. We had ice baths. We had innovative home loans who were doing face paintings and other things. We had a DJ up on one of the residential balconies of the unit block looking back over Roker Street. We wanted things to go ahead on that day that could involve the community. And once we got over the Sunday and into the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the feedback from the community has been, wow, that was an unbelievable event. The waves, obviously, as we all know as bodyboarding purists, could have been better. There's no doubt. We sent them out in some fucking hectic conditions. It's almost like that scene in 300 where the 300 warriors turn up to face that Persian army and there were just waves of fucking cunts just flying towards them on a regular basis. Like, it was gnarly. Like, the first semi-final, for example, when I was watching it from the booth going, it has been 10 minutes of consistent wash throughs. I don't know how these guys haven't just thrown their hands up and gassed themselves and, cruised in. Just get in the spot where you wanted to on that horseshoe bit to make sure you get the inside runners was near impossible. And, there were moments where I was like, wow, hats off to these guys. But again, I kept going back to the same, it's a challenge. Shark Island Challenge is a challenge for a reason. And you want more Eastern swell, but from all the factors that I've just mentioned and the comp not running for the last 6 years, which really irked me, over the last 6 years we haven't had not even one 3x3 tent thrown up on the headland so we could get a couple of rashies out there on a pumping day and make something of it. We had to go on Sunday, and when we did and everything that it came from it, I do not regret that decision. I know Sam and Mark on the committee don't either. I think it was the right one, because if you look at that swell forecast now, there's nothing there. There might be something at the end of June here. We could have possibly extended into July if we really wanted to,
but then you run the risk of losing a lot of those big name guys that had already put in so much time, effort and money to be here. You had a 6-week window. Like, no other bodyboarding events on the world calendar has a 6-week window. Like, it was never gonna tick boxes for everybody. But again, you've just got to look at the takeaways, which are, mate, all positive. And I think I've watched the highlights kind of reel probably 10 times today alone. And yeah, obviously that doesn't show everything, but you got it. Like, there was still so many amazing waves, so many incredible kind of barrels, so many. I want to talk about Jerry a little bit later on, but so much good stuff went down in that water.
Yeah, cheers, Benny. It's really nice to hear the same, man. Yeah, I feel like it is too. When you look back in the highlights, it definitely does show it. I guess just from a bodyboarding purist standpoint, we always want the perfect waves, and you always put the benchmark in 2001 and 2016 challenges. And unfortunately, you can see the length between those two comps. It's just so hard to get that 12 time and time again. So, yeah, we were stoked. And it's the difference between a surfing comp and a bodyboarding comp. It's like surfing comp, you can turn up 2-foot waves. You've got, short boards galore, 3 fins, just whack, 3 turns to the beach, and everyone's happy. With bodyboarding, you can't do that, so we had to run on that Sunday regardless.
Mate, let's move on. Let's get stuck into the heat draw. Let's talk about the ins and the outs. Obviously, we spoke about it in the last potty. One of the biggest kind of heat draws I've seen in the modern era of bodyboarding. So many world titles you could wave stick at. In saying that, there are a few that unfortunately just couldn't get there in the end for various reasons. Obviously, some mentionable outs were PLC and Tanner, and then also MIA, Terry McKenna. That's the big breaking news, mate. Where was he?
Yeah, it was devastating not having Tez. Tez is a man of many talents and says as a wanted man in many industries. So his music and his commentary take him everywhere. So I guess he had double booked himself. Well, not even double booked. He just didn't know the comp was going to run on that day, and he had an event up at Scott's Head that he was lead singer for in one of his cover bands. And then he also had a comp on the day of, so on the Saturday, and have to do the live show at Scott's Head. About a 6-hour drive. Come down and, kind of drive to the night and get there in the day. And, it was all kind of too much for him, so I totally understand why he had to pull the pin. Luckily, we had Michael Chris there, who's all pretty much his right-hand man for a lot of the Surfing New South Wales, Surfing Australia and QS comps. So he was really good on the broadcast just to take the lead. I'm sure you had a cue to ads and replays and after a couple of heats we got that sorted with his guidance, which is really good. But yeah, to the competitors, man, obviously Pierre had a really long stint over in South America, and Brazil did finish essentially early enough, but I think he wanted to spend some time with his family, and maybe the forecast, so to speak, might not have enticed him as much. Who knows? Even like the situation of being away from his family for so long and then having to spend the coin to come out there. And all that kind of stuff. I'm sure Morale, whatever the agreement would have been with his sponsors, that would have helped him out. But I guess it's just a lot for the man. And maybe, as the comp hadn't run in a long period of time, there might have been some undecisiveness on how legitimate it was going to be. Tanner was unfortunate. He did mention to us in his original email when he came over that he was only staying for a certain period of time and was going to Cook Islands after that and was looking to do some other travel around it. It kind of came to the last week. And we were really stoked he turned up at the launch party. Him and Mike being there was a massive plus for us and for the community, and everyone being able to hang out with those two is pretty special. So it was great to have him in that essence, but it's slightly disappointing he couldn't hang around for another 7 days or 8 or so and be in the comp. But obviously, you've got to respect the World Champions decision. He felt like he needed to go home, and he was a bit homesick and stuff and had been away for 5 weeks or so. So, doing at the same time, but you've got to respect it, and hopefully he can come back next year and compete there because, love to see him out there.
Mate, let's get stuck into the heats. Basically every single heat, even from kind of round one, was just stacked. There was never really going to be, I guess, a clear winner when you were looking at all those names on paper. I guess inevitably in the end, local knowledge kind of got Benny Sawyer over the line, and then obviously you had decades of experience with Leicester hot on his heels. But mate, Jack Baker got off to such an incredible start. In saying that, J-Rom surfed really well on that first round heat as well, which was pretty good to see. But then, moving into heat 2, I want to start talking about Jerry. And this is one of those moments as they happen to discuss. Man, if Jerry had stuck a few of those big moves, could have been a different outcome.
Oh, for sure, man. I think that was the story with a lot of athletes, but Jerry, and hence why he won the Ringer Award, for just the amount of enthusiasm and go and commitment that he showed on every single wave that he took off on. Plus, he was picking out the real grindy, throaty, ledgy south ones that were literally running on top of dry reef and flinging himself over. Like that over-rotated.
Air forward.
Air forward, mate. Like that was super special. And he landed, if you look at the side angle or footage, I remember speaking to Jerry and Pito after Sean Peterson on the drone, and they were saying that he'd landed essentially back in the barrel. And if he just had a bit more maybe space of the wave and space to move instead of getting engulfed with whiteboard, he's probably going to stick that. As his flip also, he came out into almost a trough of surge and tried to spin around, but then that mountain of white water got him after that. So, his efforts just kind of shone through and indicated to everyone why he is a 2 times world champion and how special of a bodyboarder he is. You know what I mean? He's an absolute freak. And it was great to see J-Rom. You expect him to go to the air. You knew what you were going to get. Like even the warm-up sessions leading up to that challenge, he was just doing, I don't know if you got to see it. There was one clip out middles actually away that's close to Cape there. Really fun wave, kind of next to a bit more of a deep water slab that grinds and grows down the reef like a rip bowl. And most of the time you do an air forward or a flip out of there, and big open water, so to speak, and the landings can be quite heavy, but you get a lot of speed out, and it's great. Never seen an air reverse out there. And J-Rom, I think in his first or second session out there, he might have surfed it once before, just straight air reverse out of the bowl and landed straight back in the wash and rode out of it like it was nothing. So he's, again, another special talent, and great to see him flicking himself over ledges like that. Because the people at home that understand that wave obviously know that you don't have much water between you and yourself when landing in between, coming to demise on solid rock ledge. But him to keep doing it time and time again, and just having the audacity not to get injured and not to, he seems like he's fucking Iron Man, you know what I mean? It's really, really sick. And Jackie Baker, he's dubbed as a local hero around Cronulla. Just a good old grease monkey mechanic, getting things done the hard way. And he's super smooth out here on, he knows how to read the conditions. He reads those slabs really well. And you could tell by that really acute spin in the pit he did just as the kind of, White Rock or peak to White Rock bit kind of joined up, and then he's got that funnel all the way through the surge. And, that was a pretty clutch moment in the comp, and he only needs one more wave in his semi-final to one more score to kind of progress, and it could have been him in the final. Could have had four essential locals there, and I guess the number in the finals of 3 locals is Osler definitely included as a local, being here for 5 or 6 years now. Showed how well they read the conditions and how critical it is that you must put the hours in at the island. It's not a way to turn up and just surf and boog. It's got to put the time in out there to fully understand, all the different intricacies of it.
Mate, another standout kind of in that early heat as well against Jack was Anthony Miller. He was someone that I kind of tipped to be that watch out for guy. Obviously, I think the youngest competitor in the event. And again, just so unlucky. His wave selection was actually really good. He got probably some of the best waves in that heat, but just couldn't find that right line. Yeah,
for sure. And again, he's only 16. There's a lot more to come from Anthony. He needs a bit more meat on the bone, striking, so to speak, but he's only going to grow into his frame and, fill out to someone that's, going to be able to handle, pushing through those washy, watery sections, the clamping on surge or possibly rolling out and being able to, that huge roll he did, being able to stick it and ride out of the landing. Because you look at Jerry and J-Rom, they did similar moves. And I know they didn't land all of them, but if you look at some of them, they did. Even Louis, for example, and it's the strength and it's the core strength around yourself that really shone through with people performing there. And he's a really good talent. He's a good kid, and he was selected pretty early on as the Grom in the comp because he just put a lot of time in the water in general, is really keen and is keen to learn. So it was, it was great to see him do well, and I'm sure in years to come, if he gets the call up, he'll definitely make the most of it.
Yeah, definitely a learning experience for him. I want to also touch base on Liam Lucas, which is going to segue into something else as well. But Liam, super unlucky, snapped his leash early in the heat. I think I read a comment that he might have put up on his socials that just said, he just spent a lot of time underwater, a lot of time pushing himself against currents in that whole heat, which kind of just, gives you a great insight to how challenging those conditions were.
For sure, man. It really was a proper challenge, and they were honestly warriors out there, just going hand. I couldn't believe what they were dealing with against, because you don't see, for example, Benny, you do not see that phantom bomby break off the back in the middle of the bay of the island that often. That's a pretty big swell, and even had Sean Cooper and Dane Woods on the mic with Deck from Cold Coast Bodyboarders, and it just, even their comments were like, wow, we've seen Cronulla a fair few times, and rarely do you see a swell pulsing this big. And they were against the elements out there. They were literally at war with the ocean at times. And even a comment from Cohen Thomas, man, he came in and just fit Western Australian lad who grew up in Tassie and surfed pretty heavy waves constantly. And he just said, came back from a stint in the desert, there for 6 weeks or so. like definitely battle fit. And he just said, to be perfectly honest, I almost drowned out there today. There was a stage where I think he copped 6 or 7 washes on the head, and by the end of it, he was like, if there's more, I'm just going to have to float in and de-leash. Like, this is ridiculous. So, yeah, I felt for Liam. Liam really, he's only come back from a shoulder injury this year. He's had, like, a long time off. He hasn't had a heap of time to put in at the island because he's obviously wanted to nurse that shoulder. I know he's been doing a lot of training. He's been really strict with his diet. He's been laser-eye focused. But sometimes the ocean can just be against you. And when you lose your board, those crucial minutes in the heat that you're not going to get back. So, just unlucky for him. But, obviously his skill set and the way he's chasing it, you're going to see him in a couple more challenges and he'll get his time to redeem himself.
Well, mate, speaking of the Tassie crew, geez, what an audience to have up on that headline just making some noise, hey?
Mate, they were making serious noise. Like, we were just sitting there with our headsets on, and usually it blocks out most noise around. You can hear a couple of things, but pretty well muted. You've mostly got the director in you just telling you what's going on and all this jazz and stuff. And then every time, and there was a slight delay in the broadcast, probably a 10-second delay. So we would be commentating on something, seeing it live, and then you could just hear 10 seconds later with the apartment block next to the house and the complex we were in. They were right on the side of it with this epic little apartment, and they would let out the largest shrieks and yells, and they were at the top of their vocal cords for most of the time.
That's what you want, mate. That's what you want at any type of sporting event. Yeah, you don't want people to sit there with their arms crossed, going, "Oh yeah, that was all right. That was all right. Yeah, golf clap." No, let it all out. Express yourself.
100%, and they were expressing themselves, man. You're right. It's so key, and the Tassie boys all look after themselves as a tight knit crew, and they're real good mates. They've got a great mateship going. And also to let's just highlight to everyone out there that hasn't thought of it yet. It kind of dawned on me the other day. It's pretty rare to see 2 sets of brothers competing in a comp together, and
yeah, pretty rare, mate. Rare as hen's teeth.
Exactly, super rare. And then just to see, them all with such resumes and such, so much skill behind all of them, like in big waves, small waves, tech, you know what I mean? Like they still all hold it really well together. Like, everyone thinks, Charles Ward's just in charge down at Shippies, but then you watch him at Rebound or South Arm down in Hobart, and he's doing inverts and air forwards and all like the Remarkables wedge and all sort of stuff. And it's just a real milestone moment for me to see that, because I've got a lot of respect for those fellas, and they're just lovely, down to earth, runabout lads that just know how to have a good time and love going big waves. So it was a pleasure to have them there, and love to have them back again.
Mate, so again, obviously those guys were up and about, but I mean, they weren't the only good crew making noise, mate. The general crowd that you had for that event was huge.
We couldn't believe it, Benny. Like, I mean, we knew there was going to be a couple of people in the Esplanade, because the people that don't know Cronulla, that Esplanade, when it's sunny, is just full of coffee cups and lycra and spandex. So, like, it's go on a Sunday morning. Everyone's out there getting their steps in, and there's run clubs, and there's people swimming and surfing, and it's definitely a happening place. But to have that mixed in with then kind of the mystique of the comp and people from outside the bodyboarding walking past and peering into the tents and taking photos and kind of sticking around, just getting a gander of what's actually going on. It was amazing. And, I had Jack Baker. I remember he told me the after party, speaking to Harley Ward out in the lineup in their first heat, he just said to him, like, look back at the headland right now, and they're just littered with people, down on the cliffs, rock ledges, any spare bit of grass or flat land people were like perched up on. And we didn't expect it as event organisers. Mark, Sam and myself just kind of thought, Sunday will be a better day to run if we can, and that'll definitely draw in the crowd, but not like that. And people hung around. People literally were getting pretty rowdy by like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So like it was one of those events that kind of took us by surprise. And I think the spectacle of the waves being so big, about it being like a touch south. If you're not a hardcore purist in the bodyboarding or surfing world, looking at those waves, you wouldn't realise that they need to be more square and straight on, you're just kind of going, wow, look how big this swell is. And I think that really worked in our favour. Like people were like, wow, this is just a massive swell and they're out there competing. So they want to stick around and watch the spectacle. So yeah, we were so stoked. And we also are really lucky, Benny. Like I call it one of the greatest residential slabs you'll ever find. Like where do you find rock shelves like that, encompassed by headlands full of houses and apartments?
Well, we've talked about this again. You try to compare Shark Island to some of the other big wave locations across Australia, and they're in the middle of nowhere. There's not even a general store within 50 kilometres. It's it's a mystery and an anomaly and a blessing all in one.
For sure, and we definitely got to capitalise it on Sunday. And like you can almost like kind of compare it to. I've had some fond memories of some of the pipe comps back in Hawaii, and the North Shore's got that similar feel where the Kamehameha Highway is, obviously not as dense as urban sprawl Cronulla, but there's a lot of houses there. There's a lot of bars. There's a lot of areas to kind of perch yourself up on, and that's what you want. You want that kind of Coliseum feel, and you want that amphitheatre, so to speak. So yeah, we're lucky to have that, and if we can make sure logistically that we move on the next year and possibly get some more structures up and get council approval to make more seating, and obviously food trucks would be great, some coffee carts, and just making sure that it's more comfortable to hang around. That was one of the downsides, I guess, like not providing portaloos. Probably wouldn't need to do that next time, and making sure that we've got more bins out for general rubbish. We did a big clean sweep at the end, but yeah, throughout the day there was some rubbish floating around. So yeah, but things to tick off for next year, I guess.
Mate, and look, I think council are going to essentially review what you guys did over the weekend. I don't think they're going to have to think too hard about making a decision to throw a fair bit of support around what you guys have achieved and help to make that even bigger and better moving into the future.
Giddy up, I hope so. Fingers crossed.
Hey, two more things I want to talk about before we obviously recap the final. Lily Pollard, obviously pretty big deal to have her compete in the Shark Island Challenge. Obviously the first female bodyboarder to ever compete in the event. Unfortunately, it wasn't her day. She put up a really kind of intimate post on her Instagram yesterday, kind of giving everyone a bit of a background of what she went through leading up to that event. She obviously put a lot of time and energy into her training. Unfortunately, she fell ill leading up to the event, which kind of set her back a little bit. But one thing that caught me the most about her post, and it was also kind of relative to what we spoke about with Cohen, where essentially she's saying that she spent most of the 40 minutes paddling, duck diving, doing somersaults underwater, had a fin ripped off, she cramped, repeatedly had to, remind herself to breathe and reset and just try to do it over again. Like, I don't want to split the genders here, but, it's hard enough for the big, strong, fit, seasoned, big wave veterans to deal with those conditions. And Lily, I mean, she's not far off the mark at all when it comes to, skill. But yeah, like for her to have to deal with that, like, tip of the cap, Lily, and I sincerely hope that this feat for her inspires a whole new generation of female bodyboarders to go, you know what, I can do that. Because I think bodyboarding as a whole, mate, one thing we've missed as a sport is we've missed developing and supporting women. Obviously, something I've tried to work on in the past, failed a few times. I'm sure I'll have another shot at it again in the future. But if you've got leaders like Lily paving the way for the future, then it's in good shape.
Yeah. Her efforts out there were incredible, Benny. And she's got a lot of experience in big waves, but I don't think you can really prepare for the conditions that arose. Especially as the comp went on Sunday, it started like a nice 4 to 6 foot, maybe the odd bigger one, but it was a steep climb in swell and rose quite quickly. So she was, getting to the peak of it in her heat. And yeah, she put on a display that like she's got to be very proud of. And I think a lot of competitors need to be very proud of. To even paddle out in that and just to confront it is a full doff of the cap. And yeah, like put a thumbs up. Double high five, but you can't really undersell it because again, like you've got the whole bodyboarding world essentially with a live stream watching you bodyboard out there at one of the world's greatest slabs. The pressure coming into that would have been unsurmountable. And then, throwing like the female gender card and all the different angles you can come at it with that. I know Timber Knife and good old Timber Knife and even made a mention on one of the posts. I think like a week out before comp, kind of rubbishing Lily's inclusion. No, not with Lily was in it, but why not more chicks were in it, and how poorly we've done with that. We would like to put more chicks in years to come for sure. Like female bodyboarding can get bigger and better, but it's also too like you can tell from the post that it takes a special type of athlete. And especially on the female side, you've only seen the girls this year in the WSL, the last couple of years at least, progress out the pipe and back door, start pushing it at chokes. And this year, probably the third year in now, has been like the real turning point for them. And you can see that time they put in there and the standard has really risen because of that time put in. Female side of bodyboarding just needs those opportunities, and they'll get there very quickly. But and Lily's just turning up on the day and just howling out and doing that sets an amazing precedence. But it's just unfortunate she didn't get the waves that she really wanted. And a lot of athletes were like that. Sam Strachan came out and just said the exact same thing. He knows the island really well and surfs it really well too. And he just couldn't get the ones he wanted. So it wasn't just her or Cohen or other people. It was a lot of them that unfortunately Mother Nature just had their way with them, so to speak.
All right, so one last thing I want to touch on before we run through the final and obviously celebrate the champions. Mate, you had a special guest join you on the commentary desk for a period of time on the Sunday. Chris White.
Yeah, that was good, man. That was really good. Whitey's such a funny fella, eh? Like you give him an inch and he takes a mile when it comes to comedy and running with something. I'm sure he would have picked up on it. A lot of people did, and I had to just started going with it and laughing with it, even at the expense of our innovative production team, that they put up some of the graphics spelled incorrectly with the athlete's name.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
They're called Louis.
Yeah. Remington. Yeah.
Oh, mate. And I just had such a giggle with Whitey over that. He was just going ham and had a lot of messages the next day after it. So, besides that and just having a laugh at him, it was great just to sit next to one of the greats of the sport who has instilled such a...
Well, but besides that, and maybe his off-the-cuff comment about Steph Cocker, Rallis's wife, but I'd call that a live faux pas.
He doesn't mind speaking his mind, and I love it because he's just so true to himself. And, it sounds like he's just on his podcast with Buddha, the Grin Reefers. Shout out to those fellas. But, yeah, sitting next to the great man, who, again, has done so much for the sport, it's just a dream come true. You kind of have to pinch yourself from time to time because, he's folklore in bodyboarding. So,
absolutely.
It was great to have him on there. And he only kind of turned up on comp site. We knew he was coming, but, didn't expect him to get in the booth. We kind of just asked him on the spot and, he was more than happy to oblige. And I was there with Jake Stone and Brad Stone. And yeah, it was really cool to rub shoulders with the great man again. I hadn't seen him since we did that podcast in Sam Strachan's
studio,
and just to see him in person again, like he's just, there's like an aura around him, not even just from the stuff he's done in the sport, but just how he lives his life. Like he's such a fit unit. He's focused. He just is always doing something and always spending his time wisely. So yeah, he's a favourite for sure.
Well, I think he's down south now with a pretty solid crew. Obviously, Jake's down from Queensland. He's there with Brad, and I think Tommy Morris in tow as well. So, gee whiz, those boys are going to get up to some mischief.
Oh, sure. And hasn't Tommy Morris been on a heater? Like, good on him for going over the IBC.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
So sick, Like him doing a kike and obviously, surfing against the world's best over there. And it's a pretty fierce, competitive scene over there, I've heard. So, he's definitely baptism of fire and, his surfing's going to another level. He's really putting the time in. He's just a nice dude and just a down-to-earth fella, and he's at the wave pool. And
mate, I can't keep up with his travel itinerary. Like I still thought he was in South America. All of a sudden, my phone's ringing in the middle of the night. Some of the boys had hijacked his phone and tried to call me. big ups to Dale Akehurst and Blakey Tabone. I think Tice Ryan was in that mix. I think shit got a bit wild that night.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm getting prank calls at that time in the morning. But yeah, he's a legend, and good to see him over east, and I hope to see him over again.
All right, mate. So let's get into the real business, the final. I mean, we had Mickey Osler, Marley Dunn, Andy Lester, and obviously the eventual winner, absolute core lord, local hellman, Benny Sawyer. Mate, I don't even know how to pick this one apart. I'm just going to handball it to you. Classic.
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough to be sitting there with Toby Player and Crispy during the broadcast. We got three of us onto the final, and it was so incredible to watch, especially from a local standpoint. Obviously, Crispy had grown up in the area and served for 30 years, but now lives on the Northern Rivers. And Toby Player had been like a Northern Beaches boy. They were frothing and stoked. And Toby, being the naming sponsor for the comp, I'm sure he was well invested in how the final was going to come out. But for me, watching three local chances up against Coast Pocket Rocket and Marley Dunn, I thought to myself, like, we've got I think I even said it at one stage, we've got essentially like a 75% chance of bringing the challenge home this year. So, and really, when you look at it, the format of the challenge has been at the start with Nugget and 40, running the first inaugural one in 1997. That was for blow-ins versus locals. That was the kind of criteria. You had your locals that held it down, let the world's best blow-ins come in, see if they can take it off them, and that's what's been kind of kept from years on. Obviously, the comp's evolved. There's a portion of locals, a portion of blow-ins, portion of internationals, portion of wild guards, and kind of the big boiling pot of talent in there. But to see 3 out of the 4 finalists being from Cronulla, and we'll definitely take Michael Osler because that sap has been over here for too long now, and he's definitely part of the Cronulla crew. But
do you think he's holding on? Do you think he's holding on to the South African tongue?
Oh, mate!
I mean, I hope he does. I hope he does.
Oh, look, for sure. I mean, he's definitely proud of us, and they all are, and they should be. They come from an amazing, beautiful country with so many ways, and obviously a fair bit of shit going on there too. But he loves where he lives. I know he gets a good kick out of raising his family over here in the Shire, and we've become really close over the time he's been here. We first met in Hawaii, 12 years ago now, and just to see him, start handpick bodyboards, well, not see him, but, bring it over to Australia, grow it, open up his handpick shaping, board kind of shop here in Canberra in the Shire, and just watching him progress and being one of the sponsors for the comp too. Like, you've got Bodyboard King as a naming sponsor, but with handpick bodyboards being on there with hub boards and innovative home runs. Like, he was a major player in getting this comp up and running, and then just seeing him in the final and getting just deserved against, two of the best out there over the last couple of decades, and Andrew Lester and Benny Sawyer, and then Marley Dunn being, one of the world's best currently with a lot of the stuff he's done in Europe. I'm sure he would have got such a kick out of it. And I said this on a potty maybe 2 or 3 months ago when asked about who I'd have as the wild card or the dark horse, so to speak, for the comp. And I threw it down to Osler because he is a competitive mastermind, and he knows how to crunch the numbers, and he knows how to read a heat play by play as the minutes, count down and people get waves in his positioning and what score he needs, and and all this sort of stuff. And he's not just going out there with a strategy; he's going out there with a evolving, minute to minute strategy. And it's so cool to see him, watch him operate, because he's an absolute psycho, and I love him. But yeah, the final was incredible because Benny Sawyer from the start was so born. He came out of the block like an absolute greyhound on heat. Like,
mate, that was a far lap moment.
Oh, I was just like, hang on, he's pulled into this screamer, which his first one was deemed wave at the comp and won the Tigger Samacha Best Barrel Award, like straight off the bat. And then his second one, he backed up with another beautiful grower that grind along the reef with enough tide now to kind of hold those mid-sized sets up in there, if you could stay on the inside. And from that moment on, I think it was 15 or 16 minutes in, I was like, there's going to be a slim chance that someone's going to come back from this, because, again, of the amount of water that was moving, the amount of opportunities that were available for people to catch waves. So I thought, man, like, these are going to be good scores. Like, Benny Sawyer has got one hand on the trophy at the moment. Like safety yellow has one hand on the trophy at the moment. And I was getting real G'd up. And then it all started to not unravel for Benny, but it started to like build up for Leicester. And he got that hectic one that broke his scapula. You know what I mean? Like absolutely cooked him. I'm pretty sure, was it in the semi-final or the final? Just trying to remember. I think
it was the final.
Yeah, it was the final. It was the final. It's all a bit of a blur, but yeah, it definitely was the final because I remember the next wave, the first good one he got, like we saw him get flogged and we were like, oh, he's gone below sea level there. That's pretty hectic. But we've also seen Lester cop them before. He usually makes every wave he goes, but if he is to come unstuck on a wave, he just brushes off and goes again because he's had a million out there and just knows what's going on.
That one didn't really look like it was the kind that was going to do too much damage.
I know, but that's the issue with the island. And I've said it before to people, most of the injuries I've seen out there, especially the broken backs, are on smaller days, less water on the reef.
Less water on the reef, yeah.
Yeah, and that wave that he had was, smaller size one, but still throaty as. And the way you can see when he's getting detonated, he's in the trough. He's in this surge trough where he's right next to that boulder, or that big slab that we call surge. And the trough is where you're just off the back of it and you're about to get shockied up. But when you get shockied up, you get shockied up into the roof of the wave and diagonal fashion, you get pushed down into the slab. So I think he's landed on his back and he's broken his scapula like that. Not knowing he's broken his scapula was insane. Or he knew he was in pain, but the adrenaline kept kicking in. I actually got word today that Jack Baker told me over the phone I was having a yarn after he got a couple of waves this morning. He said, oh, yeah, and like, I don't know if you know, but like Lester popped up from that wave and started signaling to Louis, like, on the boat, is there anything you can do to help me? It's like Louis, like the fucking health guru and fitness freak and stuff. And Louis like, nah, there's nothing much I can do, man. Like, you got to just keep going. And he knew he'd fuck himself up, but went back out there and picked off two absolute pearlers. The first one, the only criticism why he might not have got wave of the comp and been the score he needed to beat Benny was because he was slightly in front of it and just couldn't, not in front of it, he was definitely still getting bailed, but he wasn't as deep as humanly possible, where that was the difference between the scores. And then the second one was, epic. He just threaded the needle, come in behind it. It was great. And you knew those two waves for each competitor, those 4 waves were the best 4 waves.
Yeah, I mean,
final.
I obviously don't know what the final breakdown of the scores were, but was there a relatively big gap between Benny and Leicester compared to Marley and Mickey?
Well, I know from Josh DeBone, being on the judging panel, just at the after party after, we were discussing some things and talking to Craig Haddon, who obviously did an incredible job during the whole entire event. Craig, for the first time in Shark Island history, putting a priority system in place and managing that, and the logistics he had with his stacked app and all the scoring and linking up the live broadcast. It was really well done and super professional, and Craig's a master at what he does. But speaking to both of them, they highlighted that the discrepancies between Benny Sawyer's scores and Andrew Lester's scores on the 4 judging sheets were 0.2, 0.2, 0.5 and 0.8. So that's how close those waves were. And they watched multiple angles of every replay they could, replaying that to make sure that they could find the differences between Benny's and Lester's, because that's how close it was.
Yeah, wow.
And that's the crazy thing, to see Lester into his 40s, against like a guy that's maybe 8 to 10 years younger than him, like putting on a show. And I'm not saying like, age is it doesn't determine everything, but
no.
like when you come into a final like that where a lot of the energy is zapped out of you already and you're dealing with 10-foot wash throughs and you've got a broken fucking scapula in your back.
I mean, it's a little bit of a setback.
What?
I mean, yeah, the broken scapula, it's a little bit of a setback.
Yeah, it's just a flesh wound, as like Monty Python. People say, it's all good, don't worry about it. But like honestly, like when that all came to light, and you look back at the epic comeback that Silver Fox Andrew Lester has like mounted in the last 20 minutes of that final, it was almost undeniable, in a sense, to not give him the win. But obviously Benny's waves were better and that kind of stuff, and it would have been the fairy tale moment. And it was a fairy tale moment for Ben too, because it was his first Island Challenge. It was a huge moment. But just with everything that Lester put on the line and all the fucking effort he put in and over the pain barriers you overcome to make that final so interesting. Like you almost just wanted to give it to him on those grounds, but yeah, he surfed an incredible final and showed why he's one of the best, if not the greatest out there for consistent time and waves and scores he's put on the board over the last 3 decades. But and then Osler was back in third, still a really credible third, and surfed epic, got a really fun ride, and actually got a...
He went left.
Yeah. So I was actually questioning, was that the first time someone gone left in a challenge? But it hasn't. It hasn't been to people before that have done it, I've found out. But it was cool to see him go against the norm. He said he was just over getting flogged on that right inside, like kind of peak ledge, and saw that thing coming and said, fuck, I'm just going to give it a go. Really nice roll. He's got really good strength on left too. Surf pipe and a couple other bombies up and down the coast really well on left. So he was at home in his element and threw that out there. And like Marley Dunn too, like he got an amazing one where he scooped in under the hood at peak and kind of rode high over White Rock and then finished the surge and came out, and that was a nice score. But there was one he unfortunately couldn't run out of, and that would have been another backup score that would have made it really interesting. So, I guess when you look at Benny and Lester, Benny had 2 really good waves that he capitalised to the absolute most on. And when you had Lester, he's capitalised on one really well, and this was the judge's eye. And then the first one, he just could have capitalised a little bit more, and that was the difference. And then where you had Osler, probably not as it still had good waves, but didn't get the waves that he probably wanted. And Marley Dunn got kind of the waves that he wanted, essentially, but couldn't capitalise on one of them. So I wouldn't say he fully got all the waves he wanted, but, there were chances there to make them into decent scores. And I guess that's what makes a final so clutch, those little 1%ers that you either get done or you don't do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make you win or lose.
Absolutely. Mate, so obviously one thing you guys did that was really unique and quite historical to what's been done in the past with the Shark Island event is essentially holding off the scores. So for everyone sitting at home watching the webcast, everyone was kind of in the blind, not knowing who was in the lead, who was scoring what, and to be honest, not even how much time was left on the clock, which was good. That it created a pretty high sense of anticipation, and I think it left a lot of people again almost stressing out after the Hooter went because it was so hard to determine who had kind of got across the line first. So, mate, tell me about the Prezzo because, mate, you guys must have had some views via that live Instagram feed.
Yeah, definitely had a fair few people log in and watch it. We wanted to do it a little bit earlier at 7, but just the pack down took a lot longer than expected.
Well, I'm glad you did it when you did. We actually had a Bodyboarding Victoria committee meeting on Teams on Sunday night, and we're all like, "Oh, come on, guys, we're gonna wrap this up. We've got this presentation to watch."
I love how you're prioritising the presentation over the VIF meeting. I love it. Yeah,
mate, our matters were less pressing than crowning a champion.
I love it. It was something that has been done in the past, and we wanted to honour it again. There was a bit of a lag in the pack down, so we didn't have as much time as we wanted to kind of get there and just pump it out because we're mindful it's a Sunday night and we just want to make sure that people are still up and Sunday's a bit more of a slower night, so didn't want to drag it out too much, but we ended up getting it out there and the reason we do it is because you want people to come to the presentation after. You don't want them just to cruise off after the event's been announced there, as the winner's been announced, and you can kind of go all on your merry way, which, could work too, but for the anticipation and just to draw out a bit more kind of suspense in the event, we wanted to hold it like that and do the right thing by Colonel Rec Club because they put on a good bar tab for us and wanted the event to be held there and then to get people back there, utilise their facilities and play their pokies and spend their money at their bar was
right. But also the champions deserve to be celebrated, and they deserve that glory. They need to bask in it. They have every right to. It's I've seen it way too many times with bodyboarding events that you hold that beach presentation, basically 20 minutes after the final hooter's gone, and then it's almost like a storm in a teacup. You crown that champion, and then all of a sudden there's tumbleweeds coming through the car park. Everyone's just bailed.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no vibe after it.
Yeah.
You don't get that community sense. And I guess the biggest thing is, you raised a really good point, Benny. The biggest thing for this event was to make sure it was a community event, because as a Grom growing up, I used to love when the pros used to come to town and you'd see them all roll in, and the level of surfing and bodyboarding would just, increase dramatically at local break. And you'd see them around the place. You'd want to hang out with them. You'd want to rub shoulders with them. Just to get, your slice of the pie when it came to world stars. And that's what we wanted to do with this, and to make sure that, as you said, they are honoured and capitalised, or their moments capitalised on, and they get their time in the sun, because, you don't want to just give a $10,000 check out to some dude in a wetsuit in the dark at Cronulla Point.
Exactly.
On a Sunday evening. You want to kind of get everyone there and make sure it's under the lights. We had a live band playing after. And just make an event of it. And that's the whole thing about this, Sam, Mark and myself putting time and effort into over the last year. We wanted not just an event, we wanted a community event. We wanted to have a good time from it, because that's what bodyboarding's really been lacking in our eyes, especially here in Cronulla. So we want everyone to come together and just have a good time. But so the people out there wanted to hear the scores and know straight off the bat. I get it. It's the internet age. Social media, you want clarification straight off the bat. You want your groceries delivered in 30 minutes to your doors, click and collect, iconic, same day delivery. I fucking get it, mate. But at the same time, you got to wait for those good things, and good things will come to those who wait.
Absolutely. Mate, so I guess to recap everything that was just spoken about, first and foremost, like, big ups to Benny Sawyer. Obviously couldn't imagine a more deserving winner for that event. And again, that local knowledge and the how many hours did you say you got to put in at the Shark Island Challenge before you got it dialed? Something ridiculous. 1,000 hours.
Yeah. Crispy was making the comment. I think this is for most sports and just people who want to be get to a master level, so like a black belt level. With 10,000 hours.
10,000 hours, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Benny's definitely put 10,000 hours in out there. He's been bodyboarding there for ages, as is Lester, as is Strachan, as is Finlay, for example. Like, you saw the people, Jack Baker, the people that went well in that comp, have just put a lot of time in out there. And when they got to the final, it was evident that was the case. And Benny Sawyer's done so many hours out there. And he's a really dedicated bodyboarder. Him and his son, Zach, they just absolutely froth on bodyboarding. They live and breathe it. He just wants to surf heavy slabs every day. I dare say Benny still might be kicking on now. I don't think he'll be letting that win go anytime soon. Rumour has it, we had a good after party, so to speak, that led into Monday morning. And he was seen like on, Monday afternoon into Tuesday morning, just at Gleeso's place kicking on. So the Cronulla kick-ons are still going alive well with Benny Sawyer. But yeah, as you said, Benny, he has deserved this in day dot, and puts a lot of time in for it and deserves it. And I'm so glad that he could raise the trophy and get the $10,000 cash prize, because he's a special dude. And everyone that knows Benny loves him. Like, he's a very, just likable, like, honest, laughing lad who just wants to have a good time. There's not too much ego there. And he's a good egg.
Oh, well, mate, I'm obviously looking forward to catching up with Benny over the next few days to get his take on how it all went down. So, also super honoured to have him join us on the potty as well. Mate, what I want to do now is just kind of wrap up and do a bit of a full event review. And obviously just pick your brain on things that you thought worked, things that you guys saw as a committee that show some room for improvement, but at the same time continue to herald that this was basically a huge success, not just for the Shark Island Challenge, but also for bodyboarding on an international level, regardless of this not being affiliated in any way, shape or form with the IBC World Tour. Mate, I think it's made its mark, and it's going to create a pretty significant ripple effect across the world. I'd like to think that a lot of people are going to draw inspiration from this and look at doing something similar kind of waves of consequence all across the world. I know we've talked about it on our potty. I had a really good chat with Sam Thomas not that long ago about, opportunities here in Oz. Yeah, look, I guess only time will tell. But, mate, I guess, again, we've already covered some of these things. But, for you, what were the takeaways in terms of the positives? Like, what did you think worked really well? What did you think, you could have worked on to get better? I guess the obvious one is, like you said, that the swell direction wasn't perfect. But, mate, let's take that out of the equation. Let's talk about some of the other things. Go for it.
Yeah, sweet. So, it's a good way to round it out too, because you've got to review these events to make sure that you're making improvements and for the next year, but also kind of celebrating the wins. So I guess from an organisational standpoint, like Sam, Mark and myself have discussed after the event that the water safety was excellent. We were really stoked with the Southern Shire Council lifeguards and how hard they work to set up buoys and patrol the life. Patrol the.
Well, there's something you can work on, mate. The buoys. I'm not sure what you're going to need to keep them in place.
Yeah, the buoys after I think like the third or fourth heat went. I don't think we'll see like a growing soil like that again from the south anyway. To see them like so ripped out of place, but just their communication to their operations manager Carl, like head lifeguard, he was really good coming up and down the point and making sure we were all sweet. Brad Whitaker from Marine Rescue, he was doing lifts out and down for athletes all day and really helping out there. Just without him getting them back in the lineup, with also Kip Caddy.
I was going to say, I heard Kip Caddy was out there.
Yeah, he did such a good job, man.
So, for those that don't know who Kip Caddy is, absolute standout, stand-up, big wave charger from the South Coast. Obviously really close companion with Nate Florence. Someone I enjoy kind of watching when he makes his way down here to this part of the world. So have someone from that community come across to help with the bodyboarding event is huge.
Yeah, he's a legend. He's also really good mates, Sam Van and myself and Jack Baker, Cameron Staunton. So he's well aware of the event happening, and he's just a good bloke too. He wants to be part of it all. So he's a legend for lending time. I've actually I saw him today in the car park. I didn't thank him for it, so he just jogged my memory that I do need to send him a thank you text. But yeah, they were really good. Really loved the media boat. Obviously, the swell was hitting it pretty hard, and it was hard to do live broadcasts off there. Just with the reception keep getting cut, was cutting out because of the size of the actual waves and how it was, bugging up the frequency, so to speak, and the reception. But that was a small thing, I guess. We really liked the branding. We felt like that worked really well. Like the black and white's always quite powerful and professional. So we really liked that. We loved the complex in the house that we got to use. Shout out to Curly, an old man and four-play shaper. Like he's a great dude and was just so opening and just his arms wide open essentially to all of our staff and to all of the people that came onto the comp site, and he's happy for us to use any part of it and accommodate the judges and the priority boys really well and live broadcast. So that was really cool. I guess takeaways from the comp. A couple more positives. Definitely have Sean, Gregory Cooper, Dane Woods and Deck McMullen up on the mic again, the beach commentary. They were great and they had a lot of people in stitches, so love to have those fellas back.
As long as you haven't got Woodsy doing custard tart reviews.
Oh mate, how's the custard tart reviews on him, mate? They are that good. Talking about like boomerang shape and his base is a little bit dodgy and all sort of stuff.
Bakeries nationwide are going to be shutting down.
Oh, I know. He's harsh, eh? He doesn't mind giving them his full opinion, but he's a legend. He's so tongue in cheek, and he's got like a really good bodyboarding brain and knows a lot of the stats and a lot of the booze. He's really in the know, and he's also funny. Tell just loves having a laugh. He's an Australian larrikin, so really cool to have him there. And we also have Coops and Deck also does a lot of the beach commentary for Gold Coast bodyboarders, who they also lent us their flag Brendan Newton, Idris Cooper, and Deck all came up, and that was epic just to have them there lending a hand. Like you can't say enough about those fellas. They're really cool. But and also having a DJ out on the one of the residential apartments, that was also pretty cool, creating the vibe. But one of the biggest takeaways, Benny, is a compliment sandwich. We've talked about the positive, let's talk about the negative. One of the biggest would be that we need the production team to first and foremost have the ability to employ cameramen that have done surfing events before and making sure they're following on replays and waves, so then the replays can be properly judged and adjudicated on. There was a couple ones that were really messed up and they were having trouble on the boat getting, a sturdy camera angle, which again, if you saw the swell from other angles, that was obviously, 10 to 12 foot faces of waves. So I can understand why it wasn't perfectly still, but there's still things we worked on there. Also, I guess in our budget moving forward, we only had a modest amount of money compared to past competitions where, I'm not going to say the number, but our number was doubled or tripled in past competitions when it came to budget.
Absolutely.
So large organisations could back and fund it. So I guess when it comes down to being able to run over 2 days and hopefully having money next year, that'd be a huge takeaway and improvement because we could then run over 2 days, have that production team set up and ready to go for the second day, knowing that the swell could just be a 2-day event and picking the eyes out of the tides and making sure that we can get 3 hours here, 3 hours there, and we've got 6 hours of competition, or even 4 hours one day, 4 hours the next, and we could do some specialty heats, like we could do some world champion heats, some masters heats, some all girl heats, all that sort of stuff that you can see in the WSL where they get Paul Fisher or Mick Fanning slated to go out and do like a twin fin heat at Snapper or something. We'd like to incorporate that. So that's something definitely we need to work on with the broadcast. Another thing would be to make sure that we have enough portaloos on site from a logistical standpoint, enough rubbish bins, and I guess.
Well, they're the 1%ers, mate. I don't see them as negatives. Again, if anything, they're just learning opportunities.
Yeah. I guess you're right there. But I guess probably the biggest thing was being out of control. Financially, the biggest takeaways would be to financially have enough kitty in the bank to be able to run over multiple days.
Of course.
And make sure we get the best out of the swell present over the 6-week waiting period. And the second would be to make sure that the production team, which they still did a really good job, and I'm still very much was very, very happy with what they performed on the day. Just fine-tuning some of those 1%ers that, made it look a little less polished, so to speak. Like, huge shout out to Sean Peterson. He did a great job flying his drone. I really loved the drone shots looking over the island. You could see how big the swell lines were. Even Toby Player made mention it looked like it was secondary pipe at one stage and all sort of stuff. But when you got to see like some of the heat interviews or the replays or whatever, it just needed to be a bit more polished and not as kind of jolty or whatever. But yeah.
But again, mate, I don't again, please, I just make sure you guys don't take that as negative feedback. It's, try and take it as constructive. This is your first time running an event on this scale in those conditions, mate. It was never going to be easy. But you guys did a sensational job, and like I said, I've watched it a dozen times. The highlights reel that you guys have released. That's what people are going to continue to watch in the future. No one's going to go back and watch the live webcast over and over again. They just want to see the quick bits because everyone's attention span is so short these days. What you guys have put together into that end-of-line production highlights clip is amazing, and I think that is going to be the basis for your essentially investment platform for next year. And without a doubt, I'm incredibly confident you guys are going to have people banging on your door to get behind that for 2025.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Thank you so much for saying that, man. Yeah, it's only small things, but always good to look back at it and make sure that we improve on it for 2025. But yeah, Mark and myself are committed to continuing on this great comp, and we just want to make it bigger and better and have some fun with it. So I guess 3 small business owners with their families on the side, Mark to put up with a couple more years of.
Well, that's it, mate, and that's the one thing that people tend to forget. We're all doing this kind of stuff in our very limited spare time outside of our real lives. So again, that's another huge positive takeaway for you guys. You did this in your spare time, and you fucking nailed it.
Thanks, Benny. That's really nice, man. And coming from someone who's run many successful events beforehand, man, and running like a national tour like you did, like that's really nice feedback. And yeah, I definitely can't wait for next year. But for the next couple of weeks, I'm glad it's over and we get a bit of respite and just hopefully enjoy some waves of a winter.
Mate, sit back, relax, enjoy the fruits of your labour. I'm sure I'm speaking not just on behalf of myself and my podcast team, but a large majority of the bodyboarding community in saying thank you. Mate, it was an absolute pleasure to sit back on Sunday and watch that event unfold and the lead up to it. It was the kick in the guts our sport needed, mate. And we can't thank you enough for everything you've done, mate. So once again, really appreciate you giving up your time. I know you've got a lot on your plate now with baby number 2. But cheers for coming on the potty, mate. And geez, can't wait to catch up with you for a beer in the flesh sometime soon, brother.
Cheers, Benny. Thanks so much for having me, man. And again, thanks so much for you guys at the Closeout Potty just doing such a good job reporting on this stuff and make sure it's talked about and chatted. Like, that can't be understated too. So really appreciate it, man. Thanks for taking time out of your day because, we're all really busy and you guys are doing an amazing job too. So cheers again.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
All right. Cheers, Benny. You.